Hi there. Bishop Craig Bergland coming to you, you might never have guessed by my hat, on Super Bowl Sunday. And the reason I'm coming to you on Super Bowl Sunday, even though I recognize that if you are a fan of American football, you may be, by the time this uploads today, too darn drunk to understand a word of it, is that you're going to wake up tomorrow. And what I have to talk to, God willing, what I have to talk to you about today is critically important to so many of us. Many of us, if not all of us, probably have a friend who we would say is accident prone. They seem to regularly be running into misfortune. And it's not just accidents per se. It's all kinds of things. If somebody's going to get a flat tire, it's this person. If somebody's car isn't going to start on the day they have an important presentation at work or school, it's this person. If somebody's going to break their arm trying out a new pair of rollerblades, it's this person. These are people who seem to attract tragedy or calamity the way a magnet attracts iron filings. All of us have our moments, but I think we all probably know people whose moments are more than moments and seem to occupy lifetimes of just misfortune. And I'm here to tell you, if you're one of those people, you can change that. I can't tell you how many people that I've come across in my spiritual teachings, in my ministry, who have said to me, I'm this way, fill in the blank with whatever you want. And I've tried to change it, and I can't. What I have to say to you today is that if you'd really tried to change it, if you'd really let go of being that way, it would have changed by now. The truth is, when we have those things about ourselves that seem to keep happening, when we have those things about ourselves that we've tried to change and not succeeded, more often than not, it's because we're completely unsure about who we would be if these things didn't happen to us. Let me give you a real life example from my life. When I was 18 years old, for my 18th birthday, and I'm enough of a dinosaur that when I turned 18, you were of legal drinking age. I can't remember when that changed. I remember my brother kind of got caught in the middle of it. I think he was grandfathered through because it changed when he was 18, or maybe it didn't, but right around there. So I was about 5 years ahead or so of the drinking age changing. But when I was 18, you could go out and have a drink. Now, of course, as most rebellious teenagers, I'd been having drinks long before I turned 18, but my father, who traveled quite a bit for business, and with whom I didn't exactly have the closest of relationships, came into town on my 18th birthday, came home from the road where he seemed to spend most of his time, took me out for a beer at a bar, and told me basically that he was leaving and never coming home. It may or may not surprise you to know that for many, many years, I kept having accidents on or around my 18th birthday. I'm sorry, not my 18th birthday, my birthday, which is September 28th. It was a pretty safe bet that in the last half of September or the first week of October, something was going to happen to me. I was going to sprain an ankle. I was going to fall down some stairs. I may or may not have been seriously injured in those calamities, but it was going to happen. In fact, tomorrow I'm having spinal fusion surgery done that is the end result of me injuring my back at work 4 days before my 25th birthday. And on my 25th birthday, the symptoms finally became bad enough that I couldn't feel my feet and so had to go to the doctor. And probably, I can't really define a point at which this stopped. As I got older, it wasn't always me, but it certainly would seem that if one of the kids was going to wreck their car, it was going to be on my birthday. If they were going to end up in the emergency room, it was going to be on my birthday. And it wasn't until I finally took a look at that, probably 6 or 7 years ago now, and recognized the connection to my birthday, and that there had been a series of events over the years, all linked to this day, and I started to try and recall why that might be, that I came upon that fateful beer on my 18th birthday. It wasn't even a good beer. Once I had done that, once I started to understand what was behind this, that somehow my body was still not letting go of the somatic response to what had happened on that night, which wasn't anything traumatic in and of itself, but it was the announcement of a trauma. In fact, the announcement of something wherein my father said to me, "There is nothing in this world I would trade in exchange for the places I've seen and the people that I've met while I travel." And I said, "Even your children?" And he said, "Yes." And so it was only when I was able to first of all, identify this as the connection, and then rather rapidly make peace with it, that calamitous things stopped happening on my 25th birthday. I was able to say, look, this isn't me anymore. This is who I was then, and that was how my body responded to the things that happened then, but I'm a completely different person. And like flipping a switch, the calamities stopped. The accidents stopped. Now, for every person who attracts calamity like a magnet attracts iron filings, it isn't necessarily something so easily identifiable. In fact, it may not even be something that they can remember. And then what becomes much more important is asking yourself this question: who would I be if I wasn't always having accidents? More to the point, who would I be if I wasn't always a victim? Now, some of you may be responding by saying that those are fighting words, and you'd be right, those are fighting words. But it's a question that needs to be asked. Who would you be if you were no longer a victim? And if you look at yourself honestly and examine yourself honestly, I suspect what you'll discover is that you don't know. And that so much of you is tied up in this identity of being either a victim or accident prone or clumsy even, or just having bad luck. All these different ways in which you're tied up in this. If you were to let them go, you don't know who you'd be. And as irrational as it may sound, I suspect there's a part of you that believes you would cease to exist. Well, let me assure you of a couple things. You will not cease to exist. There might be a part of you that ceases to exist. It would be that part of you that's always getting into calamity and accidents and stumble bumming around. But what will emerge in place of this identity that you have voluntarily taken on, much like donning a cloak, you've put this identity on and owned it, and the real you is stuck under the layers and layers of adding to this calamity, to this identity. Every time you have an accident, every time you break your arm, every time you fall downstairs, every time you get a flat tire, another layer has been added over the top of who you really are. And that truly is very unfortunate. So let me propose that you take a chance. You begin affirming, I am not a victim. I can change. And as you do so, you engage in a period of silent meditation. Let's just say 5 minutes a day. As you're saying these things, you allow time after to sit and just notice what you're feeling. As you're affirming that you're a competent, fully functional adult, no more prone to accident than the next person. I suspect as you look at what's going on in your heart, you'll feel anxiety. In fact, notice where in your body you're feeling what your reaction is to it. And then just focus there. And imagine telling that part of your body that it's okay. Remember that God dwells within you. And nothing can ever change that. That the same divinity, that same spirit of love and being and wholeness, whose very DNA is imprinted upon us in that God is the ground of all being, the source of all love and life, including our own life. You're divine. And God is not a stumble bump. And you don't have to be either. Step into your new identity as God, living in you, through you, and as you. Recognize that you're connected to every other living being, every other plant, animal, vegetable, mineral, every object, even the inert ones, that we all share the commonality of this source of life and love that is God dwelling in us and being the ground of our being in our lives. The only thing stopping you from changing, the only thing stopping you from moving beyond this place where you're stuck, is your conscious decision to change. I hope you'll undertake that decision. I hope you'll give it a try. What do you have to lose? I'll tell you what you have to lose. All these painful experiences that come around on a regular basis. And what you'll find is that as you do that, as you release the victim mentality, as you release the accident-prone identity, you'll be surrounded by more and more people who have had to step away from you because you require so much energy in your woundedness that they can no longer support you and function themselves. So the added bonus will be your friends will become closer. Your family will become closer. And even though you may not know what that identity will look like, I promise you this: it's going to be beautiful and marvelous. Until next time, I'm Bishop Craig Bergland, wishing you God's rich blessings. Namaste. Go Pack, go.